myself up. I'm just like, you know, very casually sitting on my bed. I'm so sorry I've been away. I've been doing a lot of other things. I now have TikTok. I now have a shop that I am showing different things, my favorite things that I've bought, things that I have been showing like crazy over the past few weeks. So that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to kind of self-promote. I really do want to be self-employed. I really do want to work remotely. I'm not working remotely anymore. Through everything that's been going on, I've lost 3 jobs, and I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm okay. So I'm so happy. I hope all of you out there are doing good and that you're okay and that you're not giving up, because Lord knows I've been through it. I just had major check fraud in my account where they pretty much almost wiped out my entire account. But good news, again, because I practice keeping my frequencies high and, you know, always keeping good thoughts and always trying to feel as good as I can, everything was resolved. So again, I'm doing really well, but I have been through some stuff. I'm gonna leave all my social media handles down. I have a TikTok account now. You can check that out. You can check and see what I've been doing. And then of course my shop. Now, I'm talking about my shop because, as you know, I'm gonna try to summarize, because this video is about vampires. Okay, so just so you know, if you want to fast forward to the actual vampire information, you can do that. But I wanted to sum up, you know, I wanted to start in telling you why I've been gone so long and all of that good stuff, and then kind of give you a summary of how I feel about everything. I think things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. I think that there is going to be some type of alien invasion. I mean, that sounds so stupid. Obviously, we know that we're not alone. They walk among us. Okay, they're dishwashers. They work in Ross, TJ Maxx. I'm not kidding you. If you go to that side of TikTok, you will hear people, I don't know if they're making it up, I'm hoping not, but it seems that these stories, I have seen so many of people talking about their experiences. I mean, this, you know, this is what I do. I tell you about cryptids, I tell you about all this stuff. But I think there is going to be some type of an alien invasion, or for the people who don't believe in anything, those are the people that are going to be freaking out. And it's going to be projected all in the sky, which is not going to be real. I think that they are incorporating a food shortage, just like, and I'm not saying anything that the president didn't say, so do not freaking take my video down. I'm looking up at the YouTube gods, but anyway, they predicted it and they're pushing it. So if you look up food factories in your area, in the country that you're in the US, you're going to be shocked at what's been happening. So with that said, I hope that anyone who's in the US, I don't know if you can get these from outside of the US, I hope you can. I hope you're investing, and this is one of the companies that I've invested in. This is one of the tubs that I have. If you pause the video, you can see the company's name. These, or what's in here, lasts for 25 years. I just want to quickly show you what's in this tub. It's 2 weeks worth of food. I did buy this separately from the actual site, and these are seeds, so this didn't come in the tub. But what some of the things you get in here are this, and there are other items. So yes, these are the things that I'm investing in. I've been buying slowly over several months as soon as I started hearing all these things. If you don't use it, hey, those of you that hike, those of you that camp, those of you that go away on trips, you will have food to take with you. It's not going to go to waste, and it lasts for 25 freaking years, so you can't go wrong. The only way that, you know, we can endure, we can keep happy vibes, good vibes going, is if we have enough food and water. And if that's one of the basic necessities. If that goes, or you can't get to it, well, it's going to be really impossible for you to survive, and keep content and have faith and know that everything's going to be okay. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'm kind of talking really fast because I want to get to the story. But in a nutshell, how I feel is, like I said, things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. Fight for your rights. There are a lot of things that have come out about the cure that you should already know about. If not, go to TikTok. There's so many things coming out on TikTok. The WHO, if you are up to date, the WHO did not pass. Thank the Lord. And because that would have gotten rid of our sovereignty, and without our sovereignty, we have no freedoms at all. Now that with all the shootings that are happening, they want to unarm everyone. So that's another thing that we're going to have to fight for, the right to bear arms, because once they unarm, once they do that to everyone, we're basically going to bleed. And they knock out all of the food. Well, where does that leave us? Completely under their control. So just keep in mind that prayer is powerful, and things will get a lot better or things will get a lot worse before they get better. But that's how I feel in a nutshell. So now that you know where I've been, make sure to check out all my social media links. I'm going to leave everything listed down below, especially and my shop. Now I'm going to start with the meat of this story. So let us begin. Okay, so this is another letter from the cryptid hunter Sam White Owl, and this is regarding vampires. Now, he usually allows people to ask questions, so these are some of the questions that he asked people that are kind of random, and I just wanted to read some of the answers to the questions that people ask him all the time. So, other reality monsters, someone asked him about them. He says theoretically he thinks maybe, but he is not sure. So, I guess he's never dealt with theoretically, other reality monsters, so he can't really say for sure that they exist or they don't. I do believe that they do. So the Mapinguari, the Amazonian Sasquatch, he says his friend Ray has met one and killed one. And do cryptids speak English or human languages? He said yes, fairies do, reptilians do, fox spirits of East Asia, and the Sasquatch do. Can cryptids shapeshift to other monsters? Sam says he wasn't sure, but there are some cryptids that change shape to human-like forms. And the Wendy Joes, I'm not going to say that name, but you know what the Wendy Joes and tall deer are two different species, so they're not the same. The Wendy Joes were once human, tall deer were never human. Both can mimic speech. And do the hunters have a central base or a database? And yes, they do. They call it a reposting. It has all they know about cryptids, and they need permission each time to go in, and he cannot share info directly from it. So yes, they do have a database. So anybody who watches that, oh god, I really don't like the actors, but the show, oh geez, what is that show called? With a Sam and Dean, you know the show I'm talking about. That show, yeah, it's really close. All those stories are probably, if not all of them, come from cryptid hunters, if you ask me. But anyway, okay, so let's get into the actual meat of this vampire story. Alright. And forgive me because I wrote this a long time ago and my handwriting sucks, you know that. Okay. So vampires are as mysterious to us as they are to themselves. They are a good deal stronger and faster than humans. They live much longer than we do, but are not immortal. Much like skinwalkers, Supernatural, that's the name of the show. Sorry, I had to get that in there. Okay, so I'm sorry, back to the start. So much like skinwalkers, they have the ability to influence others to a very high degree, even though it's not total mind control or hypnosis. They feed primarily on blood and need a certain amount to survive. They are capable of eating and drinking other things, like humans, but they don't need to. They have reflections in mirrors. They do not sparkle or burn in the sunlight. They even like to season their food with garlic. They have cultural traits as well. Vampires are a separate species from modern humans. They can only have children with other vampires. Now, everything I said up to now, I have to put my 2 cents here. When the ability to influence others, because a human can turn into a vampire, and I wouldn't want to know how. I wouldn't want to be a vampire, but I'm just saying, for those vampire fanatics who would, at the drop of a hat, jump to be changed into a vampire, I believe if you already have a gift, if you are psychic, if you are psychokinetic, if you have the ability to do very strange things, that if you are able to turn into a vampire, those gifts are exponentially explode and they become bigger and stronger than ever. That's my opinion, because they say they do, they have that power of influence. So I'm sorry, but if you have the power of influence and you already have a gift as a human being and you change into a vampire, I'm just saying. Now, the fact that they do feed primarily on blood, that is the scary part, because not only do you have to worry about, well, not adults per se, but the pedophiles out there that are taking children, but then you're worried, you gotta be out there worrying, are you gonna be taken for blood? Because that's primarily why children and people are taken everywhere. It's to be eaten, to be food. And it's really sad that is what they survive on. That's why they live so long. And that's kind of scary. And I am now looking at vampire movies in I have a whole new perspective on vampire movies. I'm like, I don't watch as many as I used to, let me tell you that. But anyway, okay, so vampires are a separate species from modern humans. They can only have children with other vampires. I can see how some movies focused on family and bloodline, so like Blade, this is why this is incorporated into these movies, because it's true. A human with the right DNA can have a complete genetic overhaul and become a vampire. The change has not been documented very well, but in order to happen, 3 conditions must be met. Now, this is hypothetical because sometimes these 3 conditions are met and it doesn't happen. But one is excessive intake of human blood. I'm retching. I want to retch. Like, I'm getting nauseous as I'm reading this. 2, contact with vampiric bodily fluids. 3, living in certain areas. All of these conditions still don't 100% guarantee the change, like I said. So, location is one of the most important things in transforming a human to vampire, but it is still unclear exactly as to why. Most vampires are integrated into the society around them. Visually, they are not very different from humans, hence Twilight. They can be integrated into society. You would never know that they are a vampire or they aren't a vampire. So the author of Twilight got that right. Now, visually, they are not very different from humans. They tend to stick tightly together and are aware of the presence of other vampires. So, yeah, like Twilight. The main social unit of any vampire group is the extended family. Twilight. A lot of these families are nomadic. They end up, moving around, going from city to city, state to state, or different countries. So Twilight did get that right. They got a lot right. The Cullens at the time Edward meets Bella were back from being away for centuries. So I don't know, maybe the author of Twilight knew something we didn't, or she knew this. Vampires also have to change their identities often to keep off the radar and not be social outcasts as they live for so long and barely age as they live. Barely age. So they do age, but barely. The lifestyle is not easy, but it seems to work well for most of them. Many of the vampire family groups have one or more leaders. Like humans, vampires can be found worldwide. Interview with the Vampire, that movie, worldwide, and all have distinct cultures and ways of living. So vampires are really the main difference between a human and a vampire is that a vampire, 1, barely ages. 2, they have gifts. They can influence you, and if they had a gift, if they were human and they became vampires, they had a gift anyway, I wouldn't even want to imagine what they could do to you. They're a lot faster. They do move, just like in Twilight. They move very quickly, much faster than a human. And they live kind of like gypsies. They're constantly moving around. And again, I know, I can't keep saying it, but like the movies, they have to keep everything hidden. They have to be very careful about what they do because people catch on. People are not dumb. And especially if you are human with intuition, you have a gift yourself, or you're psychic. Okay. So, Now, this is the hunt. This specific story, I'm telling you this because Sam White Owl had to hunt a vampire. So I'm going into the actual story of what he hunted, how he hunted. Let us begin. This hunt takes place when Sam was still with Heather. Now, if you've seen my previous video, or you know anything about Sam White Owl, you will know that he was in love with a girl called Heather, who passed away in one of the cases that she took, and she was killed. But okay, so Heather was the love of his life, who was killed in a hunt. Many vampires are actually hunters, and Sam knows one named Rebecca, who lives in Portland, Oregon. Rebecca is familiar with Sam's mother. She worked many cases up and down the West Coast. A vampire family reached out to her. When they run into certain problems to keep off the radar, they go to a hunter who happens to be vampire. So a vampire family reached out to her, which is Sam's mother. When they run into certain problems to keep off the radar, they go to hunters. So she was too busy to help, so she passed the case to Sam and Heather. And I'm sorry that my handwriting sucks, but basically Rebecca, who is a hunter, who is a vampire and a hunter as well, those vampires reached out to her, that vampire family, but because she was too busy, she then reached out to Sam and Heather. So I hope that's more clear. I'm so sorry that my handwriting sucks. Okay, so Rebecca laid out the details of this case. So Rebecca is the vampire hunter. So there had been a couple of murders in the area. So 2 vampires had been killed. 2 vampire bodies were found in the Seattle area. Sam cannot give specific names, but Tuska is where the victims of this vampire family were originally from. The Tuska bodies were clearly killed, and the prime suspects turned out to be Fae. Now this turns me back to True Blood. Fae, that's a whole different video, but Fae can look like you and me. So just keep that in mind. True Blood, definitely not far off the mark at all. Like, at all. So fairies also live in human societies as well. These type of fairies can pass for human and are known by many different names, one being Dina She. The Fae who live among us live very similarly to vampires, living in families, changing identities, and moving often. Fae live even longer than vampires. One of the fairy families involved originated from Scotland. They will be the Robertson family. Ever since the Robertsons moved into the Seattle area, they had a rivalry with the Tuscans, largely based on business and grudges that cannot be spoken of. There was also a lot of distrust between the 2 families. Rebecca, the hunter vampire, gave Heather and Sam the main contact information, the name of the guy who they're suspecting, the vampire that they're suspecting of doing the murders, Marco, so they could begin their work. So Rebecca, let me back up a little bit. Rebecca, the vampire hunter, gave Heather and Sam the main contact information, whose name was Marco, so they could begin their work. Marco, who is not the murderer, Marco explained the bodies found were his daughter and 34-year-old daughter and his niece, who was 13 years old. Come on. You know, vampire or not, they are a living being, 34 years old and 13. That was rough. I was like, wow. They were brutally killed, being stabbed and slashed repeatedly with what seemed to be a knife. The bodies were found on Tuska property, clearly having been moved there to taunt the rest of the family. Someone is calling. Okay. So basically, Marco was a family member and he was a father, and that was his niece that they killed, 34 years old and 13, and they were slashed apart. Like, oh my god. The police were somewhat aware, but Heather and Sam were dealing with it due to the identities of the families involved. With some convincing, the local police let Heather and Sam do their own investigation. Jeez, how many times haven't you seen this on True Blood or, oh my god, and Twilight, where, maybe not Twilight, but the series. I mean, I've watched every vampire and werewolf series that, not that this has anything to do with werewolves, but like True Blood, the cops are involved and then they see that it's kind of weird, so they just leave it up to whoever knows the most. Woo. Okay, so the hunters deal with situations beyond the capability of an average human police officer. Heather and Sam met with Marco in Seattle, and his property was big and very nice, but blended in with the other properties in the area. Marco was tall and thin, with slick back, brown hair, and gray eyes. He looked to be 40 or 50, but he was probably maybe 300, 400, 500 maybe? But looking into his eyes, you could tell he was a great deal older. His accent sounded to be from Eastern Europe, and the way he spoke was more formal. There were about 20 people gathered in the home. Marco didn't want to be reported. The Tuscas were asked why they thought the Fae were involved, and one of the 20 family members present said the Robertsons' mark was left on the bodies. So it was like a Fae mark that was left on the foreheads of these two bodies. Many Fae have symbols that look like flags, and that mark was carved in both the woman and the child. The primary reasons the Tuscas explained for the animosity from the Fae was business related and to racism. Of course racism, because, you know, why would racism be left out? There was bad blood historically as well between the races. Fae, especially the Dinashi, are known to favor and at times protect humans, some out of necessity. And don't get it twisted, the Fae, even though I have a special place in my heart for fairies, there are so many different types. And I don't think I've ever met a human Fae, but I can't imagine that if they're meeting you, they don't know you, they are no different than us. Carry grudges. When you meet a human being on the street that you don't know, what's the first thing you think? They're gonna hurt you, they're gonna do something to you, they wanna con you, they wanna scam you, whatever the case may be. So I think that the Fae have come to the rescue with dealing with humanity if they have to, or it's something in it for them, or they actually like you. So just like human beings. So it's kind of weird how it just resonated so deeply with me. But anyway, sometimes out of necessity they protect humans and can rob humans of their senses of direction, clothing, or money. Others are just mischievous and will prank or trick unsuspecting humans. Other than that, they try to live peacefully among humans. So they're among us as well. Vampires have a different history, being known to be very aggressive, and then cryptid variants are well known to attack or kill humans, especially when blood starved. So even though this family was human, and no, Twilight got that wrong, where they can live off of animal blood, which I'm sure they can, and they get the light eyes, whatever. I think that if they are starved, they go into they turn into something else. Let's just leave it at that. And that thing they turn into has no conscience, if you know what I mean. So the Robertsons empathize with humans in that because they are closer to humankind and have become a natural prey to vampires. The victims were not doing anything out of the ordinary at the time of the deaths. The 34-year-old was picking up the 13-year-old from a play date, and both never made it home. They were walking. They were just walking. Okay, so basically the victims were just walking, doing a regular task that you or I would do. That really got to my heart when I read that part. But anyway, okay, I am taking this to be 100% true, by the way, because, you know, Sam White Owl is a real person and he is a hunter. So anyway, okay, so Heather and Sam were taken to the morgue to see the bodies. They both saw this was a crime of pure hate. The victims' foreheads were marked with the Robertsons' symbol, which resembled the antlers of a stag. Heather and Sam went to speak with the Robertsons. The Robertsons were familiar with hunters. Heather began the questioning. The Robertsons were very saddened by the news of the murders and seemed authentic. The Robertsons said the crest was missing the flower, and they became very angry. They provided evidence that the crest was not their crest. Dina She are very proud and serious about their ancestry and lineage, which is another thing, just like humans. If you're proud of your ancestry and lineage, that's great. I think it's more important to beings that live 300 to 400 to 500 to 600 to 1,000 years. My ancestry and lineage, where I know what it is, I'm familiar with it, I could care less. I don't care. And I don't say that lightly. It's not like, I'm not making fun or putting it down in any way. If you're proud of that, great. But in the grand scheme of things, why is that so important? But again, I think in logically trying to make it make sense, it's because they lived for so long. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Anyway, Heather asked the Robertsons if they know of anyone else capable of hurting the Tuska family. At first, the Robertsons couldn't say, but then said maybe there was someone. Marco's son. He was disowned by the family, but they didn't know why. The parting was very unpleasant. So the Robertsons seemed to be feeling that they were framed. So the Robertsons believe, they're trying to explain to Sam and Heather that they believe that they're being framed. Heather and Sam went back to the Tuskas. Tristan was the disowned son. So Tristan is the one that they believe is doing the murder, or did the murders. Whew, okay. So he was exiled 12 years ago. It's not common, but to harm one of your own is unforgivable. He had a short fuse and got into it with his cousin. So Tristan was disowned from the Tuska family, the vampire family, because he hurt his cousin. Tristan really hurt his cousin and inflicted a lot of damage. He was then exiled. Now, if they're vampires, I'm pretty sure they have a massive healing capability. So the act itself, I get it, but the cousin wasn't dead and he probably healed. And they lived for hundreds of years. So I don't know, I think exile is too much of a punishment. Had he killed the cousin, maybe exile, but I don't know, that's just my opinion. That makes 2 cents. Anyway, his sister, Tristan's sister, keeps track of him as Tristan does right to her. Heather and Sam went to visit Tristan's sister. She was very upset and began to cry when she showed the victims pictures. Now, when they visited, Tristan, I can't say that word, the murderer's sister, okay? She, just like anybody, I don't want to see those pictures, so she broke down and she cried. She let the hunters read the murderer's letters to her. The letters weren't as revealing as they hoped, but they were able to get a location of where he worked. They went to his job and told him when he went home. He looked like a younger Marco. The hunters went to his home, and before they could explain, so basically they went up to the door, they knocked like any normal person would. Tristan pushed Sam. So when they went to visit Tristan, as soon as he opened the door and said hello, and they, said they didn't even get a chance to say who they were, Sam was literally pushed. Tristan pushed him off the porch, and this was a porch where you needed to, go up a few steps, and he landed back first. He flew completely overriding the steps and just flew back onto his back off of the porch. Heather and Tristan were like, Heather was like, what the hell? And a full fight ensued because Heather hauled ass in. Now, gunshots, you can hear gunshots in there, and Sam was trying to get up to get into the house to get to Heather. And believe it or not, Heather, this woman was able to get a vampire down. Now, Remember, they're faster and they're stronger than us, and this just shows you how long and how good of hunters Sam and Heather were, because Heather was inside the house a little bit longer before freaking Sam could get up off the floor and get into the house to help her. Police were called, and Sam was really hurt, actually. Tristan was complaining about the hunters trying to enforce peace. Tristan killed the girls because he wanted to start a war, so he killed his sister and niece without even blinking twice about it. The Robertsons gave condolences to the Tuskas, but the family still do not trust each other. So he did it. And I mean, the case was solved so fast because they were just going there to talk to him, and he just full on attacked. And I'm sorry, for a human being to be able to get a vampire down, they know what they're doing. And I guess at that point, Sam and Heather had been on so many cases that they really know how to deal with the situation. But can you wrap your brain around everything I just told you? How they live, the fact that, you know, I'm looking around my neighborhood and wondering, is there one that lives here? Because, you know, a lot of humans are not, if I told you my real age, I don't think you guys would probably believe how old I really am. I'm not going to say how old I am, so don't ask, but, you know, some people age very slowly. So in that, you know, I was able to kind of be like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get aging super slow. But, you know, living hundreds of years, no, I definitely don't get that. It just goes to show how involved and how many different species, beings, interdimensional beings live on this planet. And yes, vampires are real and they are not what you think. And hearing that story just brought the fantasy to a grinding halt and made it drop to the ground for me. And yes, you know, I still watch horror, but not half as much as I used to know that this shit is real. And I could have passed many of them because they can walk in sunlight. And I want to say they do have some vulnerabilities, but I think the only vulnerabilities they have is the fact that they do die and, you know, they do age. So it's not like they don't age and they can't be done away with. But anyway, that is the story. I have been trying to get the whole video done because my camera keeps overheating. Guys, thank you for watching if you've gotten to the end. I will be back with more videos. I'm going to try to at least post 2 this month. But yeah, no promises, only because it takes a lot to, you know, edit and do all that stuff. And, you know, I've always wanted to do YouTube full time, but it, you know, kind of just didn't happen. I'm not going to forget about my YouTube channel, but, you know, please don't expect 3, 4, 5, 6 videos a month, because that probably won't happen. But I'm not going to neglect my YouTube channel completely unless it, you know, unless I have to. But anyway, guys, take care. God bless, and, you know, keep the hope alive. Everything's going to be okay. At least I believe it will. And I will see you in my next video.